Let us continue with your government exam preparation series. This is SS1 Topic 3. We are discussing concepts of power and authority. This topic appears in your exams every single year. By the end of this lesson, you will understand the meaning of power, the forms and sources of power, the meaning of authority, the types of authority, the differences between power and authority, and how to answer exam questions. Take your notes, let us go. First, what is power? Power is the ability to compel someone to do something that they would not otherwise do. Power involves force or the threat of force. When you have power, you can make others obey you even if they do not want to. Power is not the same as influence. Influence persuades. Power compels. Power can be exercised in many ways. The most obvious is physical force. The police have the power to arrest you. The military has the power to use weapons. The courts have the power to sentence you to prison. Power is the capacity to affect the behavior of others through the threat of sanctions. Sanctions can be positive, like rewards, or negative, like punishment. The political scientist Robert Dahl defined power as the ability to get someone to do something they would not otherwise do. This definition highlights the element of compulsion. When you have power over someone, you can make them act against their own will. You can make them obey even when they disagree. Power is not always exercised through force. Sometimes it is exercised through manipulation. A powerful person can shape the information that others receive. They can control the agenda. They can make certain options seem impossible and others seem natural. This is called the second face of power. There is also a third face of power. This is the ability to shape people's very desires. You make them want what you want. They do not even realize they are being controlled. Now let me explain the forms of power. There are several forms. The first is military power. Military power is the ability to use armed forces to compel obedience. A country with a strong military can defend itself and influence other countries. Internally, the military can be used to suppress rebellions. Military power is the most direct form of power. It is based on the threat of violence. The second form is economic power. Economic power is the ability to use money and resources to influence others. Rich people and rich countries have economic power. They can give loans, grants, and aid. They can also impose sanctions and boycotts. Economic power can be more effective than military power in many situations. The third form is political power. Political power is the authority given by the Constitution to make decisions. Elected officials have political power. They can pass laws, levy taxes, and appoint officials. Political power is limited by the Constitution and by the need to be re-elected. The fourth form is social power. Social power is the influence that comes from status, fame, or reputation. Celebrities have social power. Traditional rulers have social power. Religious leaders have social power. People listen to them because of who they are. The fifth form is coercive power. Coercive power is based on the threat of punishment. The police have coercive power. The courts have coercive power. Anyone who can punish others has coercive power. The sixth form is reward power. Reward power is based on the ability to give benefits. A boss has reward power over employees. A government has reward power over citizens. Now let me explain the sources of power. Where does power come from? Power can be acquired in several ways. The first source is inheritance. A king or queen may inherit power from their parents. In traditional societies, power passes from father to son. This is called hereditary power. The second source is force. A military coup seizes power through violence. Many African countries experience coups after independence. The leader takes power by force and keeps it by force. The third source is election. Citizens vote for leaders who then have the power to govern. This is the most common source of power in democracies. Elections give legitimacy to power. The fourth source is charisma. Some leaders gain power because people are attracted to their personality and vision. Nelson Mandela had charismatic power. Martin Luther King Jr. had charismatic power. People follow them because they believe in them. The fifth source is persuasion. Some leaders rise through debate and argument. They convince others to follow them. The sixth source is wealth. Rich people can buy influence and power. They can fund campaigns. They can lobby politicians. They can own media outlets. The seventh source is knowledge. Experts have power because they know things that others do not. Doctors, scientists, and engineers have power based on their expertise. The eighth source is organization. People who can organize others have power. Union leaders, religious leaders, and community organizers have power because they can mobilize people. Now let me explain the limitations of power. No power is absolute. All power is limited. The Constitution limits political power. The law limits coercive power. Public opinion limits all power. If the public turns against a leader, they may lose power. Economic power is limited by market forces. Military power is limited by the military strength of others. Even dictators have limits. They cannot do whatever they want. They need the support of the military, the bureaucracy, and the elite. Without that support, they fall. Now let me move to authority. What is authority? Authority is the right to exercise power. Power is about force. Authority is about right. When a person has authority, others obey because they believe that person has the legitimate right to command. Authority is based on consent, not force. People obey authority voluntarily. They do not need to be threatened. Authority is the legitimate use of power. Legitimacy is what turns power into authority. Without legitimacy, power is just force. A thief with a gun has power but not authority. A police officer with a gun has both power and authority. The difference is legitimacy. Now let me explain the types of authority according to Max Weber. Weber was a German sociologist. He identified 3 types of authority. The first is traditional authority. Traditional authority is based on custom and tradition. Kings, chiefs, and elders have traditional authority. People obey because that is how it has always been. Obedience is a habit. In Nigeria, traditional rulers like the Oba of Lagos, the Sultan of Sokoto, and the Obi of Onitsha have traditional authority. They do not have formal political power under the constitution, but they have influence. People respect them because of tradition. Traditional authority is stable but conservative. It resists change. The second type is rational legal authority. Rational legal authority is based on laws and rules. Elected officials, judges, and civil servants have rational legal authority. People obey because the law says they have the right to command. The Constitution gives them this authority. In a democracy, the president has rational legal authority. The authority is attached to the office, not to the person. When the president leaves office, the authority goes to the next president. Rational legal authority is characteristic of modern bureaucracies. It is efficient but can be impersonal. The third type is charismatic authority. Charismatic authority is based on the personal qualities of the leader. People obey because they believe in the leader's vision and personality. Charismatic leaders inspire devotion. They are seen as exceptional, even supernatural. Examples include Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, and Jesus Christ. Charismatic authority is often unstable because it depends on the leader's personal qualities. When the leader dies, the authority may disappear. Charismatic authority can bring revolutionary change. It can break through tradition and bureaucracy. Now let me compare these 3 types of authority. Traditional authority is based on the past. Rational legal authority is based on rules. Charismatic authority is based on personality. Traditional authority is stable but rigid. Rational legal authority is efficient but cold. Charismatic authority is inspiring but unstable. In most modern societies, rational legal authority is dominant, but traditional and charismatic authority still exist alongside it. Traditional rulers still have influence. Charismatic leaders still emerge in times of crisis. Now let me explain the difference between power and authority. This is a very important distinction for your exam. Power is the ability to compel obedience through force or threat. Authority is the right to command based on legitimacy. Power is based on fear. Authority is based on respect. Power can exist without authority. A military dictator may have power, but no legitimate authority. He rules by the gun. People obey because they fear arrest or death. Authority can exist without power. A traditional chief may have authority but no army to enforce it. People obey because they respect his position. In a stable democracy, the government has both power and authority. It has the power to arrest lawbreakers. It has the authority because it was elected. The people consent to be governed. Let me give you real examples. A policeman stops you for speeding. He has the power to give you a ticket. He has the authority because the law gives him that right. You stop because you recognize his authority. You may not like it, but you accept it. Now imagine a thief points a gun at you and demands your wallet. He has power. He can shoot you, but he has no authority. You may give him your wallet out of fear, but you do not accept his right to take it. That is the difference between power and authority. The police officer has both. The thief has only power. Now let me explain the relationship between power, authority, and legitimacy. Legitimacy is the acceptance of authority as right and proper. When a government is legitimate, citizens obey its laws because they believe the government has the right to make those laws. Legitimacy is what turns power into authority. Without legitimacy, a government must rely on force to make people obey. With legitimacy, people obey voluntarily. A government that has both power and legitimacy has authority. A government that has power but not legitimacy is just a dictatorship. A government that has legitimacy but not power is weak and cannot enforce its decisions. The ideal is to have both. A common exam question asks you to define power and explain its forms. Here is a sample answer. Power is the ability to compel someone to do something they would not otherwise do. The forms of power include military power, economic power, political power, social power, coercive power, and reward power. Military power uses armed forces. Economic power uses money and resources. Political power comes from the constitution. Social power comes from status and fame. Coercive power uses punishment. Reward power uses benefits. Another exam question asks you to explain the sources of power. Here is your answer. Power can be acquired through inheritance, force, election, charisma, persuasion, wealth, knowledge, and organization. Inheritance is power passed from parents to children. Force is seizing power through violence. Election is gaining power through voting. Charisma is attracting followers through personality. Persuasion is convincing others through argument. Wealth is buying influence. Knowledge is having expertise. Organization is mobilizing people. Different sources create different kinds of power. Another exam question asks you to distinguish between the three types of authority according to Max Weber. Here is your answer. Traditional authority is based on custom and tradition. Kings and chiefs have traditional authority. Rational legal authority is based on laws and rules. Elected officials and judges have rational legal authority. Charismatic authority is based on the personal qualities of the leader. Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. had charismatic authority. Traditional authority is stable. Rational legal authority is efficient. Charismatic authority is inspiring but unstable. Another exam question asks you to distinguish between power and authority. Here is your answer. Power is the ability to compel obedience through force or threat. Authority is the right to command based on legitimacy. Power is based on fear. Authority is based on respect. Power can exist without authority, as in a military dictatorship. Authority can exist without power, as in a traditional chief. In a democratic government, leaders have both power and authority. Understanding the difference between power and authority is essential for understanding how governments work. Here is what you need to take away. Power is the ability to force obedience. Its forms include military, economic, political, social, coercive, and reward power. Its sources include inheritance, force, election, charisma, persuasion, wealth, knowledge, and organization. Authority is the right to command. The three types are traditional, rational, legal, and charismatic authority. Power is based on fear. Authority is based on respect. Legitimacy turns power into authority. Practice these definitions. When you have them down, move to topic 4.